Hey everybody, Keith Dotson here with another video where we look at a historic photograph. But this video is a little different than my previous videos about historic photographs because it isn't so much about this photograph, but rather about this photographer. The photographer W.S. Lively was from a small town called McMinnville, Tennessee, which is not far from me. I had never even heard of him, so I thought I'd do a Google search, frankly not expecting to find much of interest, and boy was I wrong. This guy was actually kind of a big deal. He was local and a big deal, and I'd never heard of him. And there's still a lot of stuff related to him in McMinnville, so you know what that means. Field trip. So I struck out on the hour or so drive through the autumnal hills of Middle Tennessee to see what I could learn about W.S. Lively. My first stop was for breakfast at this fast food joint. Look at that line. Must be the most popular place in town. The old military vets are out selling red plastic poppies. After breakfast in a bag, my first legit stop was this place near downtown McMinnville with an official Tennessee State Historical marker about W.S. Dad Lively. Yes, they actually called Mr. Lively Dad or sometimes Daddy. I know, it strikes me as a little weird too, but those were different times. I actually found ads in professional photography magazines that referred to him as Daddy Lively. The historical marker says the following: W.S. Dad Lively, 1855 to 1944. In 1875, W.S. Dad Lively, a McMinnville native, began his photographic career. His studio was located on the second floor in the Lively building on Main Street. In 1904, on this spot, Lively opened the Southern School of Photography, which closed in 1928. It was one of the first of its kind in the U.S. His fame for the construction of a large camera producing 30-inch by 60-inch glass negatives led to his photographs being placed in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian Institution, Washington, D.C. So this is one of the really cool things about W.S. Lively. In addition to being an accomplished portrait photographer, he had a few other professions I'll tell you about in a minute. W.S. Lively founded the Southern School of Photography right here on this spot in 1904. Believe it or not, it was only the second photography school in the nation, and he founded it here in McMinnville, which frankly is still off the beaten path even today. But it was successful. The school operated from 1904 to 1928 when it burned, and people came from across the country and even internationally to study there. One of the incredible things about the Southern School of Photography was that it was co-ed. It welcomed male and female students, and this is at a time when women were not encouraged to have professional careers. Heck, they didn't even have the right to vote in the United States yet. In some of the school's marketing materials, they listed reasons that it was a good school for young women to attend, and one of those was the fact that McMinnville had no saloons. Many women graduated from the school's program. Aside from photography, Lively operated a furniture store. He sold caskets and provided mortuary services. All of these businesses operated from the same three-story building circa 1915 that still stands on West Main Street in McMinnville today. That's a view of downtown McMinnville. That's where we're headed next, to see the Lively building where he had his studio and his mortuary service and his furniture business. Okay, off topic, but I had to show you this. This is the kind of oddball stuff you can still find in small southern towns. By the way, don't misconstrue the fact that I'm showing this as any kind of endorsement of the Confederacy. Exactly the opposite. This guy was apparently a local banker and a businessman who saw fit to build a monument to himself in town. This was erected probably 1927. Talk about an outsized ego. At the bottom it says, "This stone not to be moved for love or money." And it hasn't been. That's the Lively building on the right, circa 1915. On the left is where the museum is housed. His photo studio was on the second floor, and those very windows would have been used for his sole light source, at least in the early years of his photography career anyways. I can't make out what the faded paint says. I thought it might be cool to bring this photo for a homecoming, although the building was finished in 1915 and the photo probably dates to the late 1880s or maybe 1900. It's still a spiritual homecoming of sorts. In McMinnville, they do something I think is pretty cool. They put these markers on the sidewalk to tell you about the history of the buildings. This is the museum. They have a large collection of lively personal artifacts and some things from the school. The museum director spent a lot of time talking to me about the history of the school and showing me old photographs and things. That's one of W.S. Lively's actual glass plate negatives, 16 by 20 inches in size, placed side by side with a matching contact print. And the print is a stunner. 16 by 20 inches is a very large glass plate negative. But if you remember from the text of the historical marker, W.S. Lively gained fame for making a set of 3 prints from glass plate negatives that were 30 by 60 inches, or 76.2 by 152.4 centimeters. These are digital reproductions of 2 of them. Can you imagine sensitizing and handling a glass negative that large in total darkness? And what about the size of the camera? It required an 8-foot camera, which unfortunately was lost in the fire that consumed the school in 1928. The story, according to the museum director, is that Lively was invited to exhibit about 150 prints in a show organized by none other than George Eastman himself, the founder of Kodak. Lively replied that he couldn't provide that many prints, but that he would instead offer 3 prints that he guaranteed would garner much more interest. The result were 3 60-inch contact prints, which was a size that had never been done before. The stunt worked, gaining Lively a national reputation, and the originals were requested for the collections of the Smithsonian Institution. The museum director, Chris Keithley, also wrote this book on history of the county, which is pretty cool. Well, that's all I've got for now. I hope you enjoyed this field trip to McMinnville, Tennessee. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to visit my website at keithdotson.com.